Hello and welcome to EBKnits. My name is Emily. I'm a knitter and making enthusiast based in Orlando, Florida, and this channel is my outlet to share all things handmade, especially knitting. And today I want to share everything I made, both knit and crochet, in 2022. So it is New Year's Eve and there are lots of fireworks going off in the background, so hopefully you cannot hear that too much. So here's a plan. I'm going to share the numbers. I went through and calculated the number of projects by category, and then I'm going to do a brief summary of what I learned from knitting this year, and finally I'll go through each and every project quickly. If you want to see more in-depth reviews of any project or my making process, I have an entire finished object vlogs and video sit-downs on the channel, so check out that playlist. And I also do monthly wrap-ups, so you can kind of see how I'm going through as I am making every project. Okay, so in total, between knit and crochet, I made 42 projects this year. Knitting wise, I made 28, crochet 14. So let's delve into those knitting stats. I made 21 hats, 7 of which were bucket hats, 14 of which were beanies. I made 5 total garments, 1 cardigan, 2 short sleeve summer tops, and 2 pairs of shorts. And then I made a couple of other accessories. I made a shawl and a headband. And then the crochet breakdown. So again, I made 14 total crochet items, 5 of which were trees, 7 ornaments, 1 hat, and 1 blanket. All of these projects were completed in 2022. Some of them I started in 2021. These are all my finished objects of this year. No whips. So the biggest trend in all of my knitting this year were simple stockinette projects. Stockinette was my most consistent stitch. That's the case for probably most, if not all knitters really, but for me it was like my lifeline this year. I went back to school, which meant a lot of time studying, reading textbooks, and I just used the stockinette stitch to keep my hands busy and help my brain focus while my hands are occupied knitting. So that was really my key this year. So a lot of these projects you will see have large amounts of stockinette. I found time management to be tricky this year in terms of finding time to knit and really spending an hour or 2 hours on complicated projects, and then other times reading, studying, cooking, cleaning, doing work, all of those other things. So that's something I struggled with this year, but at least I had my knitting, my simple projects, and I'm still really excited and proud about those. Something I am very proud of this year is that I did use a lot of my stash yarn. I started tracking my yarn stash, really trying to challenge my creativity to reduce my stash. And this is just a personal preference. I want to stress that you can have any kind of stash you want, but for me, I am trying to maybe not eliminate, but definitely decrease my stash so it's more manageable for me. And that's something I feel like I really got a good start on this year. So that was the biggest summary or wrap up of my year, but let me show you exactly what I'm talking to you about the projects. So I'm gonna start at the beginning, what I finished in January. I'm gonna be inserting a lot of photos because a lot of these projects were gifted or donated. So the first were a couple of beanies. So I'm gonna share these with you in order. You can look at all reference Ravelry for details, or like I said, previous videos for more details of all of these projects. So first was a 3x1 rib brown hat. There is no pattern. I just, at the beginning of the year, was really on a hat kick, and I was trying to use my acrylic yarn stash. The second project I knit was called the February hat. It is by Kate Osborne, and this was just a really fun textured hat. Then I moved on to a cardigan. It was the Lilling cardigan by Abby Mycroft. I knit this for my mom. I did test knit this in the previous year, so this was a belated Christmas gift for her. I knit it in We Are Knitters, the petite wool. Overall, I really like it. It has a beautiful lacy back, and I spent a lot of time finding beautiful buttons for the front of the button band because I just feel like it adds an extra element of creativity and punch. I definitely recommend this pattern. Next, I knit a cable twist headband. This was again with scrap yarn. The previous year, I knit my sister's old roommate, a sweater, and I had a little bit of yarn left over, so I knit the cable twist headband by Destiny Meyer. I thought it was cute, sent it in the mail to her as a little surprise, and now 100% of that yarn is gone. Next, I knit the Fair Isle pom-pom hat by Destiny Meyer again. Highly recommend, especially for beginner knitters. I used Wool in the Gang Crazy Sexy Wool. I knit this in the size 2 for the little boy my sister Nanny's. Turns out he really liked it. I made a massive pom-pom for it, so that was definitely a fun hat to knit. He's so knit-worthy. Next, another beanie, the Snowflakes Slouchy Beanie by Julie Paz. This was a worsted weight with, again, scrap acrylic yarn, but this was really a lot of color work. So I remember after I got the ribbing done, I knit the rest of this hat in like one day because I just loved it. The color work and seeing these snowflakes come to life was so engaging. I am so proud of this hat. My dad has it now. Looking at these pictures now and remembering the experience makes me want to knit more color work in the future. Then another gift from my dad, the Geometric Lace Blanket by Rachel Carmona. This is a free pattern on her blog. It is basically a hexagon blanket. I did not use the hexagon pattern in the pattern. I used a different one, but she has tons of advice for color choice, using scraps, how to place your hexagons so they're not in just a random fashion and it looks a little bit more cohesive. And she has a really nice joining technique as well. I used a ton of acrylic scraps. I've learned that I really like gifting projects with acrylic yarn because they don't have to worry the recipients about washing it perfectly. They can put it in the washing machine and it won't be ruined. Next, I actually don't have a finished object photo of this hat. I don't know why. I called it my mint chocolate chip hat, but the pattern is called In Transit by Alice O. Mahoney. And this was just really cute. It had a little bit of color work, but it was brown with like a minty, bluey green color work portion, and it just reminded me of mint chocolate chip ice cream. So now we're into March, and in March I began knitting a pair of shorts as a test knit for Knititude, Chantal Miyagashima. First time I ever test knit for her, but I have so many of her patterns in my library. These were really simple stockinette shorts, and I again used acrylic from Stash. I wear them a lot as lounging pajama shorts. So everything so far has been gifted and I have not had to show you, but I do have these shorts. So just hit myself in the face. These are the brown shorts I knit by Knititude that I test knit. They are in Lion Brand Heartland acrylic yarn. The size I chose turned out to be a little bit big, so I knit a second pair in a gray this time, and I modified the pattern, and you can see my entire analysis of this where I basically just combined several sizes so it fit the shape of my body better. Here is the gray version I knit. They are also in Lion Brand. I think there's a nice little piece of hair on the front. These are also in Lion Brand Heartland. Again, the waist is smaller than the rest of it, and the bind off and tie is in Malabrigo Worsted, the colorway Fortaleza, I believe. So these turned out to fit a little bit better, but I have found myself wearing the brown ones just as more lounge pants, and these gray ones I knit the bind off too tightly, and so I want to go back and redo them, and then I will wear them more often. Then I have a bunch of donation beanies. So actually I knit these throughout the spring, but I just added them to Ravelry recently before I donated all of them. But they are a collection of 5 beanies where I just used a bunch of acrylic scraps to use up my stash and make some beanies and give them away. So they're all double brim beanies, loosely based on a Knit Brooks double brim beanie pattern with bulky wool. Then I knit the caramel shawl. I started this in March and I finished it in June. This was a pattern that I really wanted to knit. I actually found it through Ravelry. This was when Russia invaded Ukraine, and the caramel shawl is by Katerina Kaska. She is a Ukrainian designer. I knit it with, again, the same yarn I actually made the shorts in. This shawl I also don't have. I gifted it this Christmas season, but it was really fun to make. It had a nice cable down the middle. I think I originally got it because I was like, oh, there's so much garter on each side of the cable, it might be simple. No, it wasn't that case. This was definitely a focus project. So that is why it took me so long, but overall, I really liked it. I think it's beautiful. I think I did a couple extra repeats than the pattern suggested and made it a little bit bigger. Then I got into the summer where I was just knitting bucket hats. I made a bunch. The first one I made I don't have, but I do have the rest. So this is the Marled Summer Bucket Hat by Pam Sapienza of The Knitting Place. They have a podcast, and I really like this pattern. I think it's well written. I have, of course, seen a lot of bucket hats that are crocheted, but I haven't seen any real knit ones. The first one was marled. I held a couple of just random yarns together, didn't love it, at the smallest size, and it fit me, but I wanted something more dramatic, a bigger brim. So then I knit this red bucket hat, and this was the size large. And this is a Wool and the Gang New Wave yarn, again from my stash. Now, they were a little bit too heavy, it turns out, for a Floridian summer, but I still really like them. I also am selling them on my Etsy shop if you happen to like them. But I think it turned out really cute. I like the bold red color, and this was not enough for me. I had to just knit more. So then I knit the blue one with the white brim. Thought it was kind of like, I call it my sailor bucket hat. So same pattern, but this one I hacked a little bit and I cast on more stitches so the brim is even bigger, and I doubled the amount of stockinette, I believe, in the brim here. So again, full details in other videos. Here is another little one I attempted, made some modifications with. This is actually white, and then I just dyed it many times. You can see the whole breakdown somewhere else, but this is kind of tie-dye, ice dye version of the hat. Then I knit a scrappy version of this hat. And this is a scrappy knit bucket hat version. Again, very large, but it's my favorite version. I magic knotted a bunch of yarns together from my scraps, and I just think it's so cool. Then I went off that same vibe with the scraps, but this time I used a cohesive color palette, so these are all my cool color scraps. And the final bucket hat I made, I also love. So this was, again, a scrap version, but I was kind of tired of the single stripes. I wanted to try an intarsia version. So here we are. These are a bunch of colors that I didn't really think went together, but looking at them at the end, I just think it's so cool. I love the intarsia. They're not really my color palette, but next summer I still really want to make one with more of my colors. I think the intarsia is such a cool idea. Those are all my million bucket hats I made this year. This is a crochet bucket hat I made. It has a flower granny motif. I started this in 2020 or 2021, but I did the most of this summer. So I think it's just so pretty. I love the colors. I used raffia yarn. It was originally inspired by an Anthropology picture of a bucket hat, of a sun hat, but it just delved in. It became my work of love. That's what I call it, my work of love. I think it's so beautiful. So now we are into August, and I finally began my first garment for myself. This is a summer top. It's been in my queue forever. This is the Peep Show Pullover by More Thunder. So overall, I really like this top. I found I was wearing it a lot after I finished it in the hottest summer months, being a Litten cotton blend and fingering weight yarn. It is so nice. So perfect for this climate. So I could see myself reaching for this yarn again for sure. And then I knit the very basic bulky ear flap hat by Ann Carol Gilmore. This was a free pattern I found on Ravelry. A friend requested an ear flap hat with the braids and a big pom-pom and the ear flaps, so I went ahead and knit that. That was a great pattern as well. Very well written. I highly recommend. Now I'm into December knitting and crocheting. I made 3 hats, again for the family my sister nannies for, one for the mom, the little boy who I made the hat for at the beginning of the year, and then the newest addition to the family. The first hat was the Chunky Dottie Beanie by Stephanie Liu, and I really liked this pattern. I've liked her Dottie stitch creations for a long time now, and I wanted something just a little bit of a step above, simple stockinette hats. I used Wool and the Gang Crazy Sexy Wool from this, again from Stash. And I just thought it was a great pattern. It was free on her blog, and I chose a faux fur pom that I had in Stash. Then I made a Dottie Beanie Kids version. I don't think she has a kids version written in the pattern. Troubles with figuring out what is a kid's size head when I don't have a kid here to test it on. I put a really fun, it's an orangey red tinted pom on it because his favorite color is red. I made a color black, light green, and dark green version for the little baby boy. Next, I was into some Christmas decorations, so I crocheted this Bobble Tree Forest you see sitting behind me. These are the Bobble Tree sweaters by MJ's Off the Hook Designs. They are crochet. I again used Wool and the Gang's Crazy Sexy Wool. Finally, I am almost done with all of the Crazy Sexy Wool I have in my stash. Then I crocheted some snowflake ornaments, so I'll insert a video of them on the tree, but here are a couple. There are 7 of these in total. I just found a bunch of snowflake patterns on YouTube and tried them out. No snowflake is the same, so I have a bunch of different kinds of snowflakes on my tree as ornaments as well. For fun to make an experiment with, I used Red Heart Holiday. It is a white yarn with a little thread of gold in it. And finally, the watermelon, what I call my watermelon throwover. This is the throwover pattern by Andrea Mowry, and I am wearing it. I did not expect to finish this by the end of the year, but I got some knitting and I just wanted to finish it, so I did. It is cropped, probably more cropped than the pattern suggests. And I also hacked the pattern, so it's a worsted weight pattern, but I made it in DK. I will have an entire finished object video about that coming up in the next few weeks, but for now, you get a glimpse into my final finished object, my final short sleeve top of 2022. I used Knit Picks wool and cotton for the body in a natural base, and then the contrast colors are from Stress Knits. Okay, there you have it. That is everything I knit and crocheted in 2022. I am very excited for 2023. I hope I can spend a little bit more time knitting more complex patterns and continue to knock things off my queue, decrease my yarn stash, look at all the more beautiful yarns and knitting tools. But until then, happy making, my friends. I wish you a very happy new year and a joyful and safe 2023.